cooperative. Okay, perfect. We can start.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cassidy. Thank you, Andreas, because of your time. You know, and congratulations because of everything you are doing. We are very impressive because of your research and your publishing in team.
Thank
My
you.
name is Miguel Castañeda, and I manage a research center, a private research center in Barcelona
Okay.
about different issues about sustainability, no?
Okay.
And specific in corporate sustainability. No?
Okay.
So we are following all the concepts, ideas, and directives that are happening around the corporate sustainability. Of course, the regulation, the European regulation about the corporate reports into sustainability. And we are following, of course, all the discussion in Europe about it. And we would like to receive your opinions about this issue. And of course, if we have an opportunity to make another conversation deeply, maybe we are going to call you in another opportunity, right?
All
So,
right.
Cassidy is going to manage the questions that you're going to answer. And after that, if we have some time, we can talk, right?
Okay. Let's do it like
Thank you.
this.
Yes.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Okay, so we'd love to hear more about what you do. So can you give us an overview of what you do and how you got into this field?
So I'm a professor of corporate sustainability, working at Copenhagen Business School. I'm a native German, so I'm not Danish. I moved here from England, and I've been researching this for over 20 years, mostly with a focus on, or in the early days, with a focus on voluntary initiatives. Because back then there was no hard law, there was no legal regulation, so I started to research voluntary initiatives. And in recent years, of course, this has changed towards the more kind of hard law regulation because this is now coming. So I shifted my focus a little bit from these kind of voluntary multi-stakeholder initiatives to the EU Green Deal, basically. Why? Well, because I think at the end of the day, if you want to mobilize businesses, regulation is one way to do it. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but I think it is one way to do it. And of course, it is usually a heated debate because people have different opinions on regulations. But I think at the end of the day, if we want to address the significant sustainability problems that we have, and they are urgent and they are very scalable, I think we also need scalable solutions in the sense of regulations that do not just affect a few companies, but you need a certain scale behind that. So at the end of the day, why am I in this field? Probably because of impact, because I think it will create impact, and it does create impact. And the discussions we are having right now kind of are all about this impact and how to keep at least some of it.
Awesome. Okay, so kind of going along with that, what do you think large corporations need in order to accelerate their ecological transition and contribute to global sustainability?
Well, I think large corporations probably first of all need a good governance system for all of this, and I think we too often neglect that, and we often too often take it for granted. In large organizations, you get things done when you have good governance in place, when you have the board on board, when you have senior management on board. And I think that was, by the way, also one of the problems in the very early discussions where we had these very isolated debates around CSR and sustainability departments, and people were always complaining that things are not moving. And this was a natural reaction because, I mean, if you don't have the governance system in a company that supports a sustainability transition, then I think it is difficult. So governance is key. Board, in particular, I would say board approval is key because the board is at the end of the day, it is the governance entity that makes these decisions. The board hires and fires senior management. So in that sense, I view this as quite critical. Second, I would say you need some good resources on board because I'm not buying into business case narrative, that sustainability is always just a win-win situation. Sometimes this is true, and my own research also has shown that, and the research of many others. Yes, sometimes you have business cases, and you have these wonderful win-win situation where the company makes money and it's good for society. But often it's also not the case. There, at least in the short term, like for 2, 3, 4 year time periods, you need upfront investments in order to get things going. You need to invest in decarbonization, for instance, in order to then create new markets, new products. So that's why I say you need resources. That's the second point, combined with third point, long-term thinking. And I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges of corporations right now. Corporations adapt a lot due to everything that is going on in the world. Corporations see geopolitical struggles, and they see security imbalances, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran. We saw it this morning. Also, of course, a number of other conflict situations. And all of this then overshadows often the sustainability discussion in boardrooms and among senior executives, and this makes it difficult to really think long term on these things. So I think these three things are key for me: governance, resources, long term thinking. I think if we get this right, we have a good chance in a corporation to really get it going.
Great. That's amazing. Okay. So then how should SMEs, small, medium enterprises act even though they're not required to submit sustainability reports under the CSRD report framework?
Hmm. I think SMEs need to look at this less from a compliance perspective, because they are admittedly, if you have a company with 100 people, I mean, you are not kind of covered by these regulations. But I think what needs to be done by SMEs is do an assessment of what your stakeholders want and need. Very often the buyers of SMEs, for instance, they require these type of sustainability information. Very often also it is necessary for government tenders. I can say for sure here in Denmark, a lot of SMEs are engaged in the sustainability debate because they participate in government tenders where they need to kind of have this sustainability information. And then I think it is of course also about who invests into your company. Quite a number of investors also want this information, and they want it, to be honest, for quite selfish reasons. They basically want to manage risks. So if they see kind of a company with a large carbon footprint, they of course ask themselves, how risky is such an investment for me? So I think SMEs, they need to really check the stakeholder landscape and then decide what to do. So this is the outside pressure, but I think it's also from the inside. I talk quite a bit to SMEs here in Denmark, and what they always come back with is a lot of SMEs also view it as a good management tool internally, right? So if you do reporting, if you do measurement, then of course it becomes easier to manage sustainability. Yesterday I was meeting with some company representatives, and somebody said, "Look, if I don't measure my emissions in 24 compared to 25, how should I manage them?" And I think that it's a quite simple insight, right? I mean, from also coming from management theory, you cannot manage what you don't measure. So that's why I think SMEs need to find a proportionate way to measure and manage. I do not think they need to do the same things as large multinationals need to do, right? I think we need to be proportionate. That was also the point of Mario Draghi in his report last year. Well taken point. But SMEs, of course, I think they need to be ready to go on this journey for these kind of external and internal reasons that I just described.
Great. So following that question, what do you think, like, what kind of regulation should be promoted then to accelerate this ecological transition of the large corporate sector?
Yeah, I think, of course, we need to be careful with kind of putting out more regulation. So I think it is probably good to kind of look at what is already there, what should be promoted, where do we maybe need more guidance for companies to do things better. I think for the transition, what is really important is data. I just said it, without data, all of these management tasks political task will become very difficult. So that's why I think what we need to promote is these reporting legislation. And we also need to explain to companies why this is important. And I think this hasn't gone so well in the past. I mean, politicians were not able to explain very well to companies why all of this is needed. And then, of course, some companies reacted and they said, well, this is just a cost burden for us. We don't like that. So I think this is one block of regulation that is important. The other block of regulation that I think is very important is the anti-greenwashing regulations that the EU has put out, because at the end of the day, what matters really is the trust by consumers. You move markets because you move consumption and production behavior, and both depend on trust by those who make purchasing decisions. If we undercut this trust in the long run, people will not react to sustainable product, and that's why it is vital that we promote these anti-greenwashing regulations. And then lastly, third area, I would say it also has a lot to do, if we really are serious about the sustainable transition, we need to look at value and supply chains, because a lot of the problems that we are talking about are not in our countries. If you, for instance, talk about social problems, right? The social problems, yes, we of course have some also here in Europe. It is well acknowledged, but most of the social problems, they stretch across long supply chains because goods are produced often in Southeast Asia under totally unacceptable conditions. So I think this is an area where we can really make a lot of progress through enhanced due diligence by companies. When they do due diligence along their supply chains, I think we have a good chance then to at least mitigate some of the most severe sustainability problems, particularly on the social side.
Oh, okay. So then how do you view current carbon emissions values in tons of carbon O2 through carbon credits? Should there be a regulation to increase this value base? And if so, why?
Yeah, I mean, carbon credits, you know that it's a difficult discussion, because there are so many carbon credits that are just not authentic, right? And I think this is where the problem comes in. So I personally, and many academics share this view, we see carbon credits as a way to address climate mitigation once you're running out of options. I would always prefer real mitigation efforts, new technologies, and so on, over carbon credits. But I also acknowledge that there are limits to what companies can do. In some sectors, you simply hit a limit at some point because there are simply no technological solutions there. So you would need to wait for the innovation to come. And I think in order to bridge this time, I think carbon credits can be a good way. But then I think we should really make sure that carbon credits are of good quality. And I think what has been decided at the last COP meeting, so this international carbon trading system, I think is a good way forward. It also has some problems, but I think overall, putting it into international organizations, a UN accredited system, I think is a good idea. And this is probably where we need to push, instead of having all these providers of carbon credits, that are, some of them are quite shady. I mean, they sell carbon credits double, triple, and this is of course not the way to go.
Right. And so kind of speaking along that, in what ways do you believe universities and researchers like us could participate in promoting the new enterprise of the future?
I think we need to be more vocal. I told you in the beginning when we were talking, I said my agenda right now is impact. I've also had my time where I was publishing a lot, and I'm still publishing a lot, but I think we shouldn't just hide behind our desks. We need to get out there, because we are perceived by most people, at least, as being rather independent, which is good, which is needed in times where also politicians are divided, where also lots of other actors often have hidden agendas. So I think we need to get out there and we need to strengthen fact-based knowledge, because this is really what is missing. There is so much fake news out there, so so many problems out there because we do not communicate correctly around sustainability. A good example actually is this entire omnibus process, right? Where politicians want to kind of tell us we simplify the rules. And to a citizen out there, that sounds actually pretty good. They say, yeah, simplification is a good thing, right? But then when you look at it from an academic perspective, if you really deconstruct what they are doing, you're actually seeing this is not just simplification, this is actually deregulation under the disguise of simplification. So I think what we need to do as universities is we need to go out there, we need to be more impactful, we need to talk to practitioners, to politicians. We need to see ourselves as brokers, I think, between these different parties. And most of all, I think we need to teach. We need to teach the future generation. And this, unfortunately, in universities is not acknowledged enough. Academics build their careers around research. And to some degree, of course, this is okay, but we need a system where good teaching, impactful teaching is as much acknowledged as good research. And I think this would be something where universities still have a lot to learn, including my own, I must admit.
Oh, totally agree. No, I totally agree. Researching is like such a core foundation now, and whether it's in every single country, research is all about where you get the knowledge and information. And so, for us to be able to kind of do this and do our own research, it's definitely very important to kind of vocalize that. So that's all the questions
Yes.
I have for you, Andreas. Miguel, you want to
Thank
pop
you.
in and
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Kathy. I only have one because I appreciate too much your time. Andreas, how do you see the prospect for the approval of the European Commission Omnibus project linked to the CSRD and C corporate sustainability due diligence and the taxonomy? Because uh, there is a lot of discussion about it. How do you see? Do you expect something positive?
Difficult to say. I think it is by now pretty certain, of course, that this will go through the political process, so it will be approved. The question is, of course, at which level it will be approved. At the moment, there are lots of political negotiations going on, and I think there is a serious risk at the moment that these regulations will be rolled back to an extent where they might not be impactful at all anymore. So yesterday, I'm not sure how familiar you are with European politics, but yesterday the rapporteur in the parliament has kind of issued his report. We also shared it on LinkedIn, and if you look into this report, I must say I have serious doubts how far or how much would be left of the corporate sustainability reporting and due diligence directives if this comes through as it is suggested. Because with his suggestions, we would basically only have a very small minority of very big companies in Europe doing reporting and due diligence. And of course, this is not the idea at all. And I must also say I'm disappointed by some of the European commissioners who actually I think could have pushed much harder here. But to answer your question, yes, I mean I think it will be approved in the end. The question is where exactly we will land. We don't know. It's a political process which will probably be concluded in the beginning of 2026.
Okay, thank you very much again because of your time, Andreas. We are going to publish this interview and we are going to share with you all the content. Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much
much for
indeed.
your time.
Yes, it was a pleasure to talk, and yeah, don't hesitate to reach out in the future if you have to, no problem at all. And have a good day and a good weekend, of course.
Thank you so much. You
Same to
too.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.